In the world of Pokemon, many trainers are known to specialize in one of the 18 types. Most notably, of course, are gym leaders, Elite Four members, and even some champions. Welcome everyone to a potentially new series. We will look at trainers who specialize in a given type and try to see who is the toughest challenge in their initial battles. Today, we'll analyze trainers who specialize in the normal type and find out which of them is the toughest challenge. Now, before we get to the main course of this video, how about we start with the appetizers? Let's first look at the normal type itself. This will tell us why normal type trainers tend to be quite tough. Honestly, the name normal type leaves a bad impression, especially with the Pokemon you might associate with it. You got your typical Route 1 mons you probably ditch later, and Pokemon that can just be described as they are literally just a cartoon animal. But let me be the one to say that you may be sleeping on normal types. Normal types are the definition of a jack of all trades. Other types usually specialize in a given stat, and don't learn moves outside their type or associated types. The prime example is the electric type. Electric types usually specialize in speed and or special attack, and even with TMs don't learn too much of anything. With normal types on the other hand, you don't know what you're getting. You want a glass cannon? Take your pick. Offensive powerhouse? The normal types got you covered. A defensive tank? How about the best stall mons in the game? And don't even get me started on coverage. If a game has any ice, electric, or fire TMs, you can guarantee that your normal type can learn at least one of them. Sometimes even all of them. Normal types have a very good showing in the type chart. They only have one weakness, which is to fighting. And in case you're wondering, yes, normal types learn a lot of psychic, flying, and fairy TMs. While they can deal stab super effective damage, remember all those TMs. They're your bread and butter. Rock and Steel resist normal moves? Fighting and war TMs are your answers. Normal has a fun relationship with Ghost. Normal and Ghost are the only types that are immune to each other, creating a can't touch each other situation. But with all of that out of the way, may I show you all to your table. It's time to meet the normal specialists of Pokemon. We start in the underappreciated Johto, where we meet the first normal specialist, Goldenrod's Whitney, the incredibly pretty girl. And that's not just me describing her, that's literally her gym title. Whitney has quite the reputation, which we'll explain in a bit. She's a relatively young novice trainer who got into Pokemon training because it was trendy. Despite that, however, she was skilled enough to become a gym leader. So what team does she use that made her such a formidable force? In her original Gold Silver Crystal appearances, she has a level 18 Clefairy and a level 20 Miltank. Remember that Clefairy was normal type before Gen 6. Clefairy isn't too much trouble outside Metronome, which has a chance of getting out something crazy, but it's Miltank who we must talk about. First off, the base stats. 490 at a point where your starter will only be at 405. Most importantly, base 100 speed. Miltank will outspeed basically anything you throw at her, which is especially bad because of the moveset. Stomp has a chance to flinch, and Attract, the TM Whitney specializes in, will stop male Pokemon. And oh hey, 7 of 8 starter Pokemon are male. Rollout will increase in power each turn, and even once Whitney runs out of potions, Miltank can heal herself 10 times with Milk Drink, so you may not be able to whittle down Miltank. You need to hit hard and repeatedly. So what counters can you get by this point? Well, there's Heracross, who won't have a proper fighting move by this point. Alternatively, there's an in-game Machop trade. You can also catch a Ghastly, or have a Raticate for your own fully evolved normal type. Anyways, how does Heart Gold Soul Silver change this team? Well, arguably, Whitney was made to be even worse. Clefairy now has Q-Charm, and Miltank has Scrappy, the latter of which means Ghastly is no longer a viable option. Whitney's team have also been leveled down 1 level each, which may make it easier for some people, but if you like to follow level caps, like in a Nuzlocke, then there are several Pokemon you can no longer evolve. And here comes the worst part. Miltank now holds a Lumberry. Hope your plan wasn't to hinder Miltank with a status effect, cause if it was, then you gotta get off those stats at least twice. Undoubtedly, Whitney is a force to be reckoned with. No wonder league officials saw potential in her. While I've personally never had trouble with Whitney, I don't blame Pokeboomers for complaining about her. She do be a bad bitch though. Now it's time for the next normal specialist. In Petalburg City of the Hoenn region, we meet the only, and simultaneously worst, Pokedad in the franchise. Norman, a man in pursuit of power. Real creative title, Dad. You're so lame. We start with his Ruby Sapphire and Oras teams, where he uses the same Pokemon, two Sucking and a Vigoroth. The movesets are slightly different, so we'll go over his Ruby Sapphire team first. Norman specializes in the Facade TM and Ruby Sapphire. so if you try to put his stats on any of his Pokemon, you'll just make him stronger. This is especially dangerous for his Slacking. Slacking is one of the few non-legendaries with a base total over 600. This sounds crazy and absurd until you learn how it was balanced. Yes, Slacking stats are legendary level, but Slacking also has the Truant ability, which means Slacking can only do something every other turn, which as we'll learn later makes it very easy to exploit, but it will certainly hurt when Slacking does have his turn. And Norman is basically the same in Oras, except he now specializes in the Retaliate TM, which will double in power if a teammate was KO'd the previous turn. But there are a lot of counters for these teams. You'll have some fine type options by this point, even if you didn't choose the Firefighting Blaziken as your starter. If you're playing Ruby or Omega Ruby, you can also get Sableye, who is weak in the stat department, but is also immune to everything except Feint Attack. And as mentioned earlier, Slacking's biggest weakness is Truant, and by this point, you can get something that knows Dig, Fly, or Protect. Because of that, you can even feel safe putting a stats like Poison, since you can avoid Slacking's attack turn anyways. But here we get to Emerald, where Norman's team is as most diverse, and arguably most dangerous. He now only has one Slacking alongside his Vigoroth, but trade the other Slacking for Spinda and Lanoon, and a Citrus Spray for his remaining Slacking. Spinda is least dangerous of the two, but does have Tear Dance to confuse you, and Psybeam for your fighting types. But next is Lanoon. With Belly Drum, Lanoon can max out his attack and deal big damage. While Norman is powerful in his own right, I don't think he has anything against an incredibly pretty girl. You just have more options in handling Norman. While I do think Norman can hit harder, it's only when Slacking can actually do anything. Compare that to Miltank, who can hit hard at any time. Personally, I think Whitney just provides a tougher challenge, and it seems like you guys agree with me. I ran polls between March and April, asking you guys who you thought provided the toughest challenge, and overwhelmingly you guys voted for Whitney. About 75% of the votes in fact. Now it should be mentioned that none of these polls ever got 100 votes, which means they aren't 100% accurate. Still though, on average people see that Norman is easier to deal with, assuming you know what you're doing. Round 1 goes to the Goldenrod Gym Leader. Now we head over to Unova, where we'll meet our next two normal specialists. We'll start with the Gym Leader of Black and White Snackerine City, Lenora, an archaeologist with backbone. A little fact about Lenora: she found herself under some controversy when she was first revealed. With her being a black woman wearing an apron, it drew parallels to some racial stereotypes, which led to a slight design change in some international releases. Anyways, yeah, her team. Lenora has a level 18 Herdier and a level 20 Watchog. Wait, those levels look familiar. Anyways, like Norman and Oras, Lenora specializes in the Retaliate TM. So once you take down her Herdier, you need to tank a double power Retaliate from Watchog. And like every Watchog you'll be dealing with in Black and White, her Watchog has Hypnosis, so you may need the Chesto Berries Cheren gives you. Luckily, South of Nectarine City can catch several fighting types, which will help out as long as you keep in mind Herdier's Intimidate. Overall, Lenora is definitely tough, but for sure you'll have an easier time with her. At most, the worst is Watchog taking something down with her. We stay in Unova for the next Gym Leader in Black 2 and White 2, where in Aspertia City we meet the rival turned Gym Leader, Cheren, the one who seeks the right path, probably referring to his arc in the first game. Cheren has a team of Patrat and Lillipup, so literally just Lenora but weaker. In challenge mode he does have a pit of, but since no other Gym Leader has a challenge mode team, we're not gonna count it. Cheren specializes in the workup TM, which is what allows his team to not just be a typical youngster team. As for counters, all you have is Riolu, an excellent Pokemon to be your only option. Theoretically, it could raise Riolu's friendship enough to evolve them, but let's be real here, that's overkill. But yeah, I'll be real here, there's not much left to say. Cheren's a good character, but he has the most basic team of this video. It really is just a weaker version of Lenora's team, even when you consider Lenora being the second Gym Leader, in comparison to Cheren, who is the first Gym Leader. And you guys seem to agree. In the poll, Lenora stomped Cheren. Even with less options for fighting types, or types that resist normal, if you had an easy time with the triplets, you'll be fine against Cheren. Now we head to Alola, where we meet the trial captain Ilima. I'll be honest, I don't have too much to say about Ilima. He's an in-universe Tumblr sexy man, and people theorize that his team and Mia's team were switched, but a gay-looking man plus a fairy team could recreate a Lenora situation. situation. Anyways, yeah, his team. Ilima has a level 9 Yungoos and a level 10 Smeargle. And that Smeargle is what can be a big threat. Smeargle's whole thing is they can learn any move. Smeargle will always know a move that's effective against your starter, which can cause a problem if your starter is your strongest Pokemon. Luckily though, you have a nice selection of Pokemon, such as a few fighting types. So even with a Nuzlocke reputation, I'm sure you'll find a way to beat him. There isn't a huge difference in the Sun and Moon battle and his Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon battle. So yeah, if these sections seem like they're getting shorter, it's because earlier normal specials have more appearances. Not to mention appearances in different generations, which add to what I need to go over. So on to the next normal specialist, I guess. Finally, we head over to Medali in Paldea, where we meet the legendary figure himself, Larry, the best fictional character. This is not an opinion, just a straight up fact. Larry is the overworked normal type gym leader of Paldea. He is also, technically, the first normal type Elite 4 member. I say technically because when he acts as an Elite 4 member, he actually switches to a flying type team. So technically, he is, in fact, an Elite 4 member who can use a normal type team. But if you don't count it, then normal is still one of 4 types that hasn't been an E4 specialty. The other 3 being grass, electric, and fairy. Anyways, Larry's team. Larry uses Komala, the Dunsparce, and his A-Star Raptor. His only member that stays when he switches to a flying type team. When acting as a gym leader, Larry specializes in the Facade TM. And since this is Paldea, also specializes in the normal Terra type, which removes the Raptor's flying weaknesses, but also his flying resistances. According to sources, Larry was originally gonna have a Bidoof, but the devs went back on this, since they realized Larry was epic enough. A right call if I've ever seen one. Anyways, for the counters. What do you think? This is Scarlet and Violet, the kinda sorta open world Pokemon game. Feel free to catch whatever fighting, rock, steel, or ghost types you want. Now for Ilima versus Larry. According to the poll, Larry is the tougher of the two, which is where I wonder if there was some bias here. I mean, Scarlet and Violet is the fancy new Pokemon game. Meanwhile, people don't look at Alola too fondly. And from what I've seen, while Ilima has a slight Nuzlocke reputation, Larry doesn't have as much of a reputation. And for reference, the reason I keep calling back to Nuzlocks is because I think they're a good way of looking at difficulty. In a gameplay style where you can't just spam potions, the battles that are truly difficult will show themselves. So I think I'll disagree with the poll. With there being less total options for Ilima and various held items for Larry, I think Ilima is overall the tougher challenge in their initial battles. With every normal specialist gone over, it's time we rank all of these trainers and get a sense of who, once and for all, is the toughest normal type specialist. After the initial rounds of polls, I took the winners and losers and made a finals bracket and losers bracket. And so, looking at the results of these polls, here is how you guys rank these trainers. Ilima is the weakest, with Cheren having double the amount of votes, and within the losers bracket, Norman was voted as the 4th toughest normal specialist. And with the finals bracket, Lenora is ranked in 3rd, Larry not too far ahead in 2nd, and Whitney unsurprisingly swept, crowning her your guys' pick for the toughest normal type challenge. Though I have some differing opinions on how this ranking should go. I agree that Cheren is definitely one of the easiest challenges here. At best, he's just a weaker Lenora, and at worst, he's just a glorified youngster. Even if there aren't too many counters this early, he doesn't really have a way to cause too much trouble, assuming you aren't actively letting him set up. Now, I'm gonna go completely against the polls here, and rank Larry as the 2nd easiest challenge here. Remember how normal types have diverse learn sets? Well, Larry hardly takes advantage of that. His only non-normal moves are Drone from the Dunsparce, and Aerial Ace from Staraptor, which, okay, fair. That takes care of weaknesses and defensive counters. But since you can catch nearly anything from the get-go, you can just get Halucha or Flamigo for the Dunsparce, and any rock type for Staraptor. Sorry, Larry. Lumbberry, I love you and all, but not having close combat on a Staraptor is a crime and you know it. Next, I'll go with Ilima. While I have been saying that Ilima is known as a Nuzlocke ender, that doesn't always translate in a casual playthrough. You get decent enough options for Ilima, and his Smeargle is only a threat against your starter. Hitting the top half of the list in third is Lenora. Retaliate is a powerful move, especially this early in the game. Even after the one turn that Retaliate is double power, with Hypnosis, Watchog can still cause trouble. In second place is Norman. Now here's the interesting thing about Norman. Depending on what team you have, he either can be the toughest challenge here, or he can be the easiest. If you don't have a proper tank or a way to play around Truant, then slacking can absolutely mess you up. On top of everything, if you're playing Emerald, his Lanoon can also sweep you with Belly Drum. And in first place, ranking as my pick for the toughest normal type specialist, is of course Whitney. Am I biased because I love Crystal and Whitney? Oh, absolutely. But there is a lot going against you in a Whitney battle, especially in Gen 2 where fighting options are more scarce. In Hard Gold, so Silver Ghost types aren't a viable option, a Lumberry is an overpowered item for this early in the game, and if you let Miltank get off all 10 milk drinks, she'll effectively have over 400 HP. Because of all that, I would crown Whitney as the normal type queen. And there you have it, folks. Do you agree with my ranking? How about the polls ranking? Who do you think is the toughest normal type challenge? Let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you want to see another video like this, along with what type you want to see me go over next. Have a nice day, you wonderful people. Seriously, Whitney do be a smash for me.